Good day and welcome to Conversations with AARP in the Virgin Islands. I'm Troy Deshabir-Schuster, State Director of AARP in this territory, and as always, it's a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you for joining us. Today we will be in conversation with Tregenza A. Roach, Esquire, Lieutenant Governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands, discussing issues important to Virgin Islanders. AARP, a nonprofit, nonpartisan member organization, has been working to promote the well-being of Americans 50 plus for more than 60 years. In the face of this global pandemic, AARP is working even harder to ensure all Americans can lead a high quality of life in their homes and communities as they age. This is accomplished through the engagement of public officials, stakeholders, and residents at the local level to plan for and enact community changes, and through education about positive changes that residents can make to enable them to remain in their communities and homes. A major platform for AARP in the Virgin Islands is this talk show, which contains interviews and facts on local action plans about ongoing efforts that work to enhance a livable community for all Virgin Islanders. We hope that you will join us regularly. We now welcome Lieutenant Governor Tregenza A. Roach. Welcome, Lieutenant Governor.
Greetings. Thank you. A pleasure to be here joining you, and greetings to the audience as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, we all know of the Lieutenant Governor, and we know the Lieutenant Governor wears many, many hats in the Virgin Islands. But these many hats, as I mentioned before the show, seem to evade me. I think I've spent the better part of my life trying to figure out exactly what the Lieutenant Governor does, because I know it's so many roles, so many departments, so many offices within the larger office of Lieutenant Governor. So can you tell us about that? Tell us all of the different departments or offices that you have under your supervision and all of the roles that you play personally as Lieutenant Governor or directly as Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you. And how much time we have? 3 hours? You think
About a half an hour, a little
about
less.
a half an hour. Okay, so that'll be brief. All right. And quite a few people, I think, fall in that same space of not fully understanding the role. And I think it's particularly a challenge to have people understand. In my case, when I've come from the legislature, and people get accustomed to seeing you speaking out on a variety of issues and putting your positions forward in bills, etc. And they try to compare that to a job that has a lot of administrative functions that are created by statute. And it's different in the Virgin Islands. My role as Lieutenant Governor from virtually every Lieutenant Governor in the country. I am the Commissioner of Banking and Insurance, first of all. So it means I chair the banking board. When every year the banks come before us and give a full report on their status, etc. And the Lieutenant Governor is the regulatory authority with regard to banking. That's important because our residents need to know that when they have an issue that they cannot resolve with their banks or with their insurance carrier, we have a whole hearing process at the office of the Lieutenant Governor where they can initiate a complaint, and we can have a hearing officer listen to their position, listen to the position of the entity with whom they have an issue, and the Lieutenant Governor can order the banks or the insurance companies to do particular things that are within his or her statutory authority. Under our offices, in line with that, we do perform functions comparable to a Secretary of State. So the whole notary process, the whole designation of notaries, the apostille process where you need documents certified or verified that may go to an international market, those functions are carried on at the office of the Lieutenant Governor. Under our offices, we act as well as the passport acceptance facility for the territory. So we have passport offices at Government House in Christiansted and at the Niski Center in St. Thomas, and we oversee that process. The entire incorporation and protection of trademarks, that comes under our Corporation and Trademarks Division. where that's where I'm like a cash register. So that every time my name is affixed to a document, or every time I sign a document in that regard, it's like a ka-ching for the government of the Virgin Islands, right? We also have under us the tax assessor, the role of going out and assessing real property in the territory that's either residential or commercial in use, and assessing a value for tax purposes. And then in line with that, we are the tax collector. And so we are responsible for the collection of property taxes, and with that added authority, the collection of the sewage fees, etc., in line with that. We are the recorder of deeds. The recorder of deeds comes under this office, and in line with that, the cadastral division that deals with the mapping of property throughout the territory, involving surveys and maps that also include historic maps that are kept at our offices. And there's virtually no real estate transaction that can take place in the territory without the involvement of the offices of the Lieutenant Governor. Importantly as well is our geographic information systems component. And we will talk a little bit more about that in terms of a major infrastructure project that we're undertaking. But you can get maps of the territory, you can get outlines of property boundaries, etc., on virtually any estate in St. John, St. Croix, St. Thomas. And that in a capsule, I think, we also do the Medicare, the SHIP program, where you will see periodically our notices go out to tell Medicare beneficiaries what they need to do in terms of certain choices that they must make within particular time frames. And we have our SHIP representatives are at the Wang Louis Hospital on St. Croix and at the Niski Center in St. Thomas as well. And so in a capsule that covers I think about 9 or 10 areas that the office oversees.
Wow, that's a lot. That's pretty amazing. You have a very full plate, and you've been doing it very well. So thank you for the way you've been serving the people of the Virgin Islands in your role as Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Certainly. And now tell us about the accreditation that your office is seeking.
Okay. Well, as the Commissioner of Insurance, the Lieutenant Governor, as well as the Division of Banking and Insurance and Financial Regulation, we are a part of what is called the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. And that is the body that really leads the charge in the adoption of insurance regulation for the territory. Insurance is really a local issue. State legislatures really take the lead in passing statutes that deal with insurance. But even so, the National Association of Insurance Commissioners endeavors to have a level playing field, where when you move from one jurisdiction to another in the country, you can have the same level of expectation with regard to the quality of review and evaluation and financial analysis of insurance companies that are headquartered or which do business in a particular jurisdiction. So there are 56 insurance commissioners. They include Puerto Rico, Guam, American Samoa, and of course the Federation of the Northern Marianas, and of course the Virgin Islands as the territories, and then one for every state. So there are certain model laws that you don't have to adopt all of them, but they put these model laws out. We recently had a change to one of our model laws as an example of what the organization does. You know, we have the Insurance Guarantee Fund. An Insurance Guarantee Fund is a pool of money that is available to the Commission of Insurance and to the Guarantee Association to assist those customers in the event an insurance company is liquidated. And we had that happen just recently, as you're aware, with Real Legacy. Well, in our case, our guarantee fund only covered property and casualty. There are many guarantee funds throughout the country that cover health and life as well. And so we recently modified that statute with the assistance of the legislature to include life and health as covered by the Guarantee Association. So for many years, and what the NAIC does, that's its acronym, is it accredits insurance divisions throughout the United States. And we had been unaccredited for quite a while. Well, we'd never been accredited. And I decided, the staff was very influential in getting us to this place. But we were like, we don't want to be going to any meetings any longer and be identified as any jurisdiction that's not accredited. So we focused for the whole of 2019 on making sure all the model laws that needed to be adopted were. We had to host a visit from the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. They came here, they spent about a week, and they looked at every file, they interviewed every employee, they interviewed me on topics like retention of staff and succession planning in your organization. They looked at every detail of how we analyze insurance companies from the point of view of the amount of reinsurance they have available to them, their financial standing, and their ability to perform in the event of catastrophes. And then they go back and they make a recommendation to the body. And then you have to go present your division, respond to all the questions that they may choose to ask, and then they make a determination as to whether they're satisfied that after all of their reviews and analysis and looking at the statutory framework, if a division is ready for accreditation. So what they did in 2019 was they voted to accredit us for 5 years, subject to a 2-year review. And so we came back, they came back, and they recently completed that review in 2021. And they went back and they made a recommendation. And I want people to understand that we often just think of, we get a lot of criticism for everything we do in the Virgin Islands. But when we went and we made our presentation to the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, in the first instance in 2019, it was a unanimous decision of the committee that we were ready for accreditation. Mm-hmm. And when they came back and they did their second-year review as they had promised, and they went back and made their recommendation, again, there was a unanimous vote. There was not one single question after we presented our division and responded to any concerns of the visiting team. But when you go, you sit in this body and they can ask you anything. And there was not a single question. We had covered every topic imaginable, and then they voted to accredit us. At the same time, there were states that were suspended, and there were those that were put on probation, etc. So we feel very good about the quality of work that we do that is being recognized nationally. And we also won a national award with our street addressing, but that's a different topic. Now, I want people to fully understand what it means to be accredited. What it means to be accredited is that you know that sometimes you have a challenge in getting companies in the territory. But what it means for insurance carriers is that they can operate within a framework where the standards are the same as anywhere in this country. That they can do business with the assurance that they will be treated the same. And that the staff of these divisions that are responsible for engaging them and interacting with them are on par with those of any place. And so it makes our climate hospitable for the possible expansion of insurance options and the expansion of products, insurance products that are available to our territory. And you might not see it right away, but it sets us on a path that really is irreversible. We have distinguished ourselves with this national body, and everybody in the insurance world knows when this happens, because it is the largest insurance organization in the world. And there's a lot of advocacy that happens around it. We go to Congress every year to advocate for changes in insurance regulations, and we have the support of the body in terms of any technical information that we might require. And sometimes people hear on the radio or on the television that I'm out of the territory and I'm attending one of these meetings. They go, oh, well, he gone again, right? But also we need to understand that as a member, they pay for me to come. They pay for my accommodations. They pay for my airfare. They pay for staff members to come as well. And when staffers go, we have technical sessions that provide professional development as well. So if we're not at the table, it means that we have declined all of those special efforts to accommodate us in this role.
Well, that's fantastic. Congratulations to you and your team for achieving that accreditation. I know that first of all, you have a very competent team. I must say that I've been more and more impressed with many of the offices that you oversee. And knowing you personally, I know that you're very thorough. And so it doesn't surprise me that they had no questions of you after the presentation.
They had not one.
Right.
All I had to say at the end was like, we look forward to welcoming you in the Virgin Islands when you come to see what a wonderful place we live in. That's
excellent.
Bravo. And I just wanted, you gave me the opportunity, I wanted to recognize Attorney Gwen Brady, who was our Director of Banking, Insurance, and Financial Regulation. And she retired last year, but she was the director when we headed to Austin, Texas, was the first accreditation meeting. So we want to thank her for the good work that she did when she was here in the territory, now that she's no longer with the division. But what we did was we have now an interim director, which is Miss Glendina Matthew, Attorney Glendina Matthew. She's in the St. Croix district, and Glendina has been at the Banking and Insurance Division, I think, close to 20 years. And then we have the Chief Financial Examiner, Ms. Cheryl Charleswell. She's in the District of St. Thomas, St. John, and she is the acting director as well. So we have two very competent people who have stepped up to kind of provide the guidance and the leadership for the division with the departure of Ms. Brady.
Wonderful. Yeah. And at AARP, we also thank Attorney Brady for all of the great work she did. She was a great friend of AARP in her capacity there in your office, and
Yes.
Many times gave presentations to our local St. Croix AARP chapter, and helped so many people. So again, we thank her, and we're sorry to see her leave, but she remains a friend of AARP. Now, looking forward to property taxes, something that every property owner is concerned about. And we saw this long list of delinquent taxes in the newspaper. Tell us about that listing and what will be taking place, and what are you able to do to help delinquent taxpayers?
Well, we are by statute required to publish a listing. It hasn't been done in a while, but we are required to publish a listing of those property owners who are delinquent in the payment of taxes to the government of the Virgin Islands. And we know that taxes support good public services that we need in our community. And that's what the property taxes go to, essentially to the general fund, where they use to support from trash collection to any variety of services that the government provides. So we're required by statute to identify the delinquencies, and we took all great effort to go through these records and to provide a listing that people saw recently in the newspaper. People responded very in short order when we published the listing, and we collected quite a bit of revenue when those properties were listed. We made sure that people understood that we did not, we want to sell people's properties out from under them, but we are performing what is required by statute. We allowed many taxpayers to enter into payment plans with the government, with the Office of the Tax Collector, to make paying their taxes feasible, because we considered their financial circumstances in coming up with a plan. Now, the policy of any government is really to maximize land use as much as possible, because land generates a variety of taxes for the government of the Virgin Islands, for any government. And so the policies always favor the useful and productive exercise of authority over land. And so you'll hear public policy favors the alienation of land, which is simply the movement of land from one set of hands to another. So the law also provides for the auctioning of property, where taxpayers do not exercise their responsibility for these taxes, regardless of the opportunities that we may provide. And so what a lot of people, so we have one set of people concerned about delinquency and payment, and another set of people just waiting for an auction so that they could buy a piece of property. So we had a lot of calls. When is the auction? What is the auction list, etc. And so I wanted to be clear to people that we've been, just like we've engaged in payment plans, etc. What we will do is we will refine that list that you saw originally in the newspaper. We will remove all of those people who came in and paid it off. And I want to point out, sometimes in the Virgin Islands, we have a lot of thing with privacy. People don't want anybody else in the business. Why you publish my name in the newspaper saying I owe taxes? But I'm going to give you a specific example of how this helps. So I got a call from a taxpayer who was living in the States, and her elderly parents' home was on the list. Now, they have an adult son living with them who had the power of attorney. And so everybody else in the family assumed that he was paying the taxes because the resources were there to pay it. So when this list comes up, you're like, wait a minute, how is our property listed on that thing? And they paid it off one time. This to show that they were not, I was going to say, what's a more politically correct word for, they were not playing around. I just they paid the whole tax liability. So people who had an interest in property, who assumed that the taxes were being paid, were now also put on notice that perhaps they were not. There were a couple of instances where the banks had maybe not remitted the amount in escrow that they might have had for the payment of some property tax, and the person who would have had no way of knowing that this was the case. And so there were many benefits to having this list published, but we did it because of the statutory authority. We wanted to encourage people to come forward and pay. As a matter of fact, we had initiated our own amnesty prior to the listing being published to allow people to come in and to discharge their responsibility without the expense of additional fees and penalties. We had done that. The legislature had also done it. So we had at least 2 amnesties preceding the list. And then we went into payment plans to help people still find ways to discharge your responsibility. But after all of that, if we still have properties where it is outstanding, we have to move to the next step of having auctions, because that is the statutory plan to deal with those accounts. But even up to now, even this long after the list was published, if your name were on that list, you still have the option to come in, get in touch with the Office of the Tax Collector, and discuss and enter into a payment plan that makes the payment affordable and feasible from the point of view of the taxpayer. We'll work with you to discharge that obligation.
Great. Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor Roach. And we're running really short on time, but tell us very briefly about the street addressing in 3 minutes or less.
Yeah. Well, we have a major program under the Street Addressing Initiative. You may have seen us. We mapped the towns of Christiansted, Frederickstead, we did Cruz Bay, we did Charlotte Amalia, We have, it is a project that is being conducted with both public and private partnerships. The post office is involved, fire and emergency services are involved, the university is involved. And what it does is it creates a grid of reliable address making that is good for commerce, it's good for emergency response. No longer you have to put up a piece of cardboard somewhere and some coconut tree and say, you know, the pink house to the left, 4 houses down from the yellow one or the big tamarind tree. And some of the FEMA people don't know it's a tamarind tree. So, or tamon or tambran, as you say in the Crucian land. And we won a national award for our street addressing initiative. We're now waiting for the second awarding of funds. Because now we move out from the urban areas to map the entire territory. And we will more than likely be completed with the island of St. John first, and then the other 2 major islands in the territory. And it's very, very exciting because it's a project that I found kind of on the back burner, and it was kind of like, this is a major infrastructure development. Let's make sure that we get this done. We have, again, our staff in that office. Chris George is the director. And we've had, I think we even got a local award recently too, because we've been assisting FEMA, we've been assisting the police department with this mapping, etc. It is, the application for it is immense in terms of how useful this project would be to the territory.
Wonderful. That's such an important project, not only for rescue services, but for everybody, even for me. Sometimes I have a hard time remembering all the names of the different estates and telling people where to go and where to turn. So I'm really looking forward to the completion of that. Well, Lieutenant Governor, we've just about come to the end of our time. Thank you so much for spending these moments with us and talking about what your office is doing. I know that you have so much more to share. We hope to have you on again in a future show and allow you to share all of that important information with us.
Thank you, and we're available at any time. Just give us a little advance notice and we'll be happy to appear and answer questions and just update you as we continue to make progress in the territory.
Great. Thanks again. And let Attorney Matthew know that we'll be reaching out to her and tapping on her expertise as we did with Attorney Brady prior.
I will.
Great. Thanks so much. Have a pleasant day.
Thank you. Do the same.
Thank you.